Happy Monday, everyone. This is the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin Sully, joined by Gordon Mack. Got a very exciting Monday show for you. The women's half marathon world record got absolutely, completely destroyed over the weekend. We'll also talk about the Rotterdam Marathon and the European men's record going down there. Italy is mad about Marcel Jacobs not being included in the men's athlete of the year top 10. But first, I will say hello to my co-host, Gordon Mack. Gordon, good morning. How are you?
Yesterday, as a Philadelphia sports fan, was high and low. The low was the Eagles. The high, the Sixers. We beat OKC. Great win. But no, enough Philadelphia sports talk. I only talk for 5 seconds on that now. No, weekend was good. Went pumpkin patch. Went went on in a corn maze. Did a little
Oh,
apple cannon, which is really fun. You should take your kids here, man.
yeah.
You could put apples into a cannon and shoot it at targets.
Yeah, I've seen
It's
that.
great.
I didn't know
Yeah.
people without kids go to pumpkin patches.
Hell yeah, dude. I've gone to pumpkin patch past like 3 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
you're allowed
never
to
went
go.
until I had kids. I didn't know they don't check ID. They don't check to make sure you have several strollers with you. I didn't go until I had kids, and then every time I go, it just all I see is kids. But that's sort of the vibe when you're a parent. All you do is you see kids
Yeah.
everywhere you go. Like after you buy
No, they had
a
like
car, you only see that type of car. Same type of thing.
yeah, I mean they had like a beer carts around, so we had some drinks. There was a
Mhm.
corn maze so that you just like frolicking through the corn maze. There was a pig race where we got to watch pigs race each other. This was fun.
I think
They weren't
okay, I think we went to the same one now. Now I'm thinking we went to the same one just on different weekends because you're unless
yeah.
all of them are exactly the same, but everything you've
Georgetown?
described it.
Was it in
Yes.
Georgetown?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Man, that'd have
Were
been
you there when I
awkward
was
if I
there?
saw you there. No, I
That would
was
have been
there
great.
last weekend. Last weekend.
Okay.
2 weekends ago. Yeah.
But
But
anyway, I got the
we saw the apple cannon. My son wanted to do it and I explained no, it's you had to be a grown up to shoot it. But really it was because that was the thing you had to pay extra for. And I already had to pay $30 a person to go in. And I was like, we're just gonna skip the extra stuff. Let's go get our faces
well,
painted.
that's actually a lie. You kind of lied to your son because you did
Yeah, I do
get
that all the
one
time.
apple. You get one apple for free. So you can pay $1 per apple, but the first
Yeah.
apple's free. So I just went and shot
Okay.
the one free apple. And JoJo
Did you hit
shot the
it?
other free apple. Yeah, I hit the target. Hell yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, what this woman just completely exploded a giant pumpkin. We were there, and I thought that's as good as we're gonna get. This is as exciting as it's gonna be because a lot of people are missing wildly with the apple cannon. All right, let's get into it, Gordon. Let's get into it. We knew the women's world record was gonna be vulnerable. I don't think anybody thought it was gonna go sub 63. We had just gotten into, and not even officially, we had unofficially gotten into the 63-second range, and then now Latensipet Gidey completely knocks it out of the park. 62-52 in Valencia. This was a typo if you ever thought it was one. Like when you looked at the results, it's like, wait a minute, 63-53? No, 62-52 for Gidey. Fast pace early on, obviously, never really abated. She just kept going and going and going. Um, Yelhalu, who had the old unofficial record, also went under the previous record there. She ran 63-51. So the other person in the race beat the old world record and still lost by a minute. I mean, there's a lot to get to here, Gordon, but the top line here at Gidey and just an all time performance on the roads in Valencia.
Yeah, and it was we knew we were gonna get something fast. We knew we probably were gonna get potentially a world record, but I think seeing something this extreme, this far under the world record, we did not see. And when you compare this to other world records, it is probably the best, if not tied for the best record in women's running with all track and field and road racing. It is insane that to kind of comprehend what a sub 63 is for a woman right now in the year of 2021. And we can talk a little bit about how great of a record this is, but I kind of want to talk about why it happened. And I think this
Mhm.
is a result of a long distance track athlete in their prime running on the roads. I think clearly she's in her best 10K 5K shape with the way she's been running the past few years on the track. And then you just translate that into good environment road racing, which is what Valencia is, flat course, good conditions, great pacing, and you're going to get these extreme marks. Like, I think if we had like prime Mo Farah before he kind of moved to the roads, going all out at in a half, maybe you see something like this. Not to say Mo would have done what Gidey is doing. Gidey is definitely deserves all the credit, but the more and more times we see great track athletes who are still in their prime competing on the roads, we're going to see special things. Like, we think that Gidey stuff is great, but we're like, wait till Hassan runs an all out
Mhm.
marathon, right? Wait till she runs all out half, right? So it gets me excited to know that there's a group of really high class track women who have yet to really show the world what they can do in the marathon and in the half marathon in the roads. So
Yeah.
it's incredible.
So
Long
I
story
would
short.
put that in the category of the half marathon not being fully optimized. And I think most people would agree to that just because it's not run that frequently. When it is, it's run as a tune-up sometimes for a marathon. And then you have this pool of 5K, 10K runners who have obviously the speed advantage over the road people, but they just don't end up running it that often, or they do it at the end of the season, get the appearance fee, and move on. But I think that's
Yeah.
only one. I think that's only one part of it. I would also put obviously the shoes into it. I'd put the course, as I mentioned. Everything in Valencia is fast. There doesn't seem to be a single race in Valencia. It doesn't matter if it's a track or the road. It's ridiculously quick. The pacing, I'd say, was phenomenal, Gordon, as well. In the beginning, I don't know if it was an intentionally set up like this. And Gidey is with NN Running, and all they do is break records as well, too. It doesn't matter who puts on the jersey for them. They're able to set up these races that go incredibly quick. But early on, she almost had that Kipchoge Vienna setup where she had the people in front of her, the male pacers. Then she had Yahuwah behind her, and then a group behind as well too. So the pacing on both sides, which is what they changed for Kipchoge between Monza and Vienna. Now eventually that back group fell off, and it was just two people up front, two male pacers up front. And I laughed a bit because I was watching the commentary, and with about 15 minutes to go, the commentator's saying, "Man, I wish the Pacers would step off, give her the stage. She can take it from here." And I'm thinking to myself, well, no, the goal is to just completely smash this record. They're still helping her. They're still giving her something to chase. So the pacing from the male pacers and just the presence of everybody around it helped immensely too. And then I'd say the fifth thing, and this goes back to your point before of just a long distance athlete, a distance track athlete going to the roads. But I just say Gidey specifically. There's obviously something about her where this distance clicks because listen, she's done the 5K record on the track. She's done the 10K record on the track. But then when it comes time for championships, we all picked Hassan. She got beat by Hassan. She faded the bronze just because she doesn't have that closing kick because basically nobody has that closing kick of Hassan. But I think she's still a huge talent, obviously. So taking her, she's not just any 10K runner. She's run those insane 5 and 10K marks, but putting her in the half marathon, I think those five things combined, and you can argue maybe one was worth 20%, one was worth 30, one was worth 10 or something like that. But I think it was those five things together made this combination of 62-52 possible.
Yeah, and for the like you said, half marathon isn't run that often in marquee. We do have the half marathon world championships, but when people think of roads, you think of marathon marks. When people think of track, they think that the longest is 10K. So half marathon kind of falls through the wayside. But I did a little bit IAAF scoring tables.
Yeah.
And Travis, if you can put us up here, if he's still here, he might have left, but I'll run through it. It is kind of insane when you compare what this mark is in other events. So, according to scoring tables, 62.52 is equivalent to 1,325
Right.
points, right? So, in a women's mile, that's a 402 mile.
Mhm.
In the women's 5K, that's a 13:39 5K. In a marathon, it's 2:11:16. Let's look into some sprints. 400-meter hurdles. What's the world record
Mm,
in the 400-meter hurdles right now?
51.8.
Yeah. This is a 50.29. 800, it's a 151.
Sorry,
400,
51.4. 51.4. Sorry. Go ahead.
400, it's a 47.10. And in the 100, it's a 10.44.
All right. Here's what I want to ask you though. Those are all hypothetical marks. Those are based on charts, but there are a couple ways to think about this. Of these three, which is the most impressive? Is it looking at the conversion marks? So you have, let's just stick with the distance stuff there, because then the sprint stuff goes way crazy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
on the distance side, you said 211. Well, the distance goes crazy too. You had 211, and then what? 1340 something,
Yeah,
and 28.
13:39 5K
Okay.
and
So
a 402
it
mile.
So what's the craziest, most head exploding way to think about it? Is it the conversion marks? Is it looking at some of these splits and how they rank against just women's performances all time at that distance? She went out, Gordon, in 15. Then her next 5K, she finished. She went through 10K at 29:45. So she ran a 14:45, which is better than a lot of countries' national record. It would be way up there on the all-time list. So is it that? Is it the performance charts? Or is it how her performance compares all time to men's performances? Because this race was run at the same time as the men. Some of these athletes, I mean, they weren't running slow. They're still at the finish line holding up the flag, posing for a picture, the men, and then Gidey's coming in there and finishing. Which way is most impressive for you? Which way to think about it?
Well, I think the fact that she basically ran a 15 flat 5K and then basically handed a baton virtually to a prime Shannon Roberry. No,
Hmm.
a prime Molly Huddle and a prime Shalane Flanagan in the 5K. Like,
That's a
like
good way
these
to think
people,
of it.
like Molly Huddle's 5K PB is 14:42. Flanagan's is 14:44. Like, it's insane to think that back to back 14 fours at the after running a 15 flat is what she did. And
Yeah.
sure, she got a running head start, but I don't think that's enough to make up for how quick of a last two 5Ks that is.
Yeah. I'm with you on it because the charts are the charts, and some of those things you can get pretty strange results from if you look at them. And again, those are all theoretical marks, but we know the hard and how fast sub 15 is for 5K for the women. Here's what David Monty wrote in the recap. He says G'day recorded official splits of 15, 29:45, 44:29, and 59:46. That's for 20K. She averaged under 2:59 per kilometer. Essentially, she ran back-to-back 10Ks of 29:45 and 30:01. Then held on for the last 1,097.5 meters to become the first woman to break 63 minutes for the distance. Her time would have broken the men's world record as recently as 1976. And if you want to do the men's thing, which again it has pedals on it too, because how frequently is this contested? But only 88 U.S. men have run faster in history than 62:52.
Yeah. I feel like it's an indictment on US men's road running.
That's
But
why I didn't want to go too far down that road.
yeah.
I wanted to just stick with comparing it to the women's performances, but it does give you an idea of the, the scope here of just how difficult this was to comprehend. Again, we were bracing for 63 something. 63:30 even would have been a huge bump down, especially the ratified record, but it would have been seen much differently than going all the way down to 62:52. She's just I mean phenomenal performance. This is her debut in the distance as well too. And ran like it, just no fear at all from the get go. Was getting her pace. She was like pushing her pacer to go quicker early on.
Okay. You know, not, not to dunk on US men's distance running more,
Yeah, let's
but
not turn
like
into that. Let's not
where
turn into
where
that.
where would G'day hypothetically finish at a 2024 Olympic trials in the marathon?
I don't know how well she do in the marathon. But here's the other thing I was looking at. Look at this historically for the women. Nobody broke 65 until 2017. Isn't that wild to think about? And now we're at a 62.52. And that's where it goes back to your point of higher quality people running the race. But I also could add in another category of just like people are taking the half marathon more seriously and there's more opportunities, especially on the women's side, because this isn't just this is it's not as if everybody in the half marathon um, just started running fast of the last 5 years. Because you go to the men's list, right? And the men's list, yes, okay, everybody's going to look at Valencia last year and look at the top 4 times in history, all came from the same race. 4 guys sub 58. That's insane. But then you still have Tedesse, number 9 all time, who ran 58:23. Again, that's almost a minute back of the world record, but it's still a top 10 mark all time. Um, he also has the number 9 mark, and then Sammy Wanjiru, the late Sammy Wanjiru, number 10 still with 58:33. You go in the women's list, you do not see times um, outside of the last 5 years as high up. So it's really the women getting going, taking the opportunity. Maybe again, like you said, more track people, but I think it's just more depth is just breeding these faster and faster races because we've just seen the record go down and down and down, time after time now.
Yeah. And I do think like half marathon has notorious been the tune-up race, right? It's a race
Yeah,
you do to
yeah,
get ready for your marathon. And if it's a tune-up race, you're not trying to run top 10 all-time marks if it's a tune-up race. But there
mhm,
might have been a little bit of a shift where now people are looking at the half marathon as an opportunity race and to run a fast time and focus and like peaking for a half. No one, people typically aren't peaking for half marathons. But in this
right.
situation, clearly, Gidey was peaking for this half marathon. Not that all half marathons were never peaked for. Like clearly, people still try to run fast, but there's definitely been a change of a wave change in how people approach certain races. I mean, hell, we had
Mhm,
people running the 1 hour world record
yeah,
attempt in 2020. Like
yeah.
things are changing. So
Yeah. Well, you just again, you'll look at the all-time list now. So you have these two 2021 performances. Then the Chepngetich was earlier this year, 2021. So that's the 3 fastest in all time, assuming everything gets ratified. Then these are the dates of the other ones: 2019, 2020, 2021, 2020, 2017, 2021, 2017, 2018, 2018, 2018, 2017. That's the top 15. And then you got to go all the way down to Paula Radcliffe's 65:40, which was done on a downhill course, if you want to count that. That's number 36 all time from '03. And then you have um, number 38, 9 all time. Again, that's a downhill course. Like it's just, it's a different race now than it used to be. The men, I know the top has changed, but there's still for the men those 58-minute times that were run in the early 2000s that are still hanging out there from from several guys. Not it's not just Wanjiro and Tedesse. There's a couple guys in there who have run sub 59s. Now maybe we'll get to a point where the men are breaking 57, so then we look at 58 in a completely different light. But the women especially have just added depth on top of the depth here.
okay, last question. I'm just gonna over under top 10 Gidey could do at the US men's Olympic trials in the marathon in 2024.
Oh, over because I think this is her distance.
Okay.
I think half marathon is now she'll run a good marathon at some point in her career, but to your point about track people moving up, for some people, their best distance is the half marathon. You can make an argument Dathan Ritzenhein's best distance like was the half marathon, or Jeffrey Kamworor's best distance is the half marathon. The problem is you can only get a medal at it during the World Half Marathon Championships, which not a lot of people prioritize. So you either got to go down to the track or you're going to go all the way up to the marathon. So I think this is her perfect distance. Will she run a a 215 one day or a 216 one day or maybe even a 214, sure, but I don't think we'll see something equivalent to it. What'd you say? 211 on the chart? I'm gonna
Yeah,
listen.
211 is a chart.
I'm gonna say that's
And
not gonna happen. I might end up eating my words here because I said sub two wouldn't happen, and I never would have said 62.52 wouldn't happen. But I'm gonna go on record and say 211 is not gonna happen.
yeah, but if it did happen, 211,
Then she would be top 10. Yes,
she would be
yes.
top 10.
She, yeah,
So, because
yeah,
212 was top 10 in
yeah.
2020. So,
I'll go over. I just think this is the situation that you get when you have a woman who's run 1406, right? And 2901, and the 2901 she ran last year. She didn't run the 2901 5-10 years ago, then got a bunch of medals on the track and then moved on to the roads. She ran the 2901 last year. She ran the 1406 2 years ago. So these are recent performances. This is who she is. She added probably couple other long runs to a repertoire, maybe extended things a little bit. But this is what happens when you see that type of speed. Can everybody who's run 1406 and 2901 run a 6252? Like for the men, is that the expectation now too?
should be. I mean,
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
we did have an American in this race on the men's side, Frank Lara. He ran 61 flat. Pretty impressive for him. I think that's a big
big
PB.
PB. Yeah, great race for him. That's the tied for number 9 all time in the U.S. That race, obvious on the men's side, was crazy quick. They didn't get the world record, but you had 7 guys sub 59. Which again, that pales in comparison to last year when you had at the in December, last December when you had 4 guys sub 58. But I think if you put, remember you talked about the idea before, right after we talked about right after they graduate, get all the graduating NCAA American athletes to run a fast half. Just go to Valencia and do it, and just see who's got the potential for the roads. Because you'd find
I
out,
agree with that.
you'd find out that a lot of people could run fast. Not to say that they would be contending and breaking world records all the time, but the level has gone up, and I think the Americans would go with them as well too. They're just not in these races, but
So,
62.52 still makes me laugh.
yeah. Well, so a little bit back on the Frank, 61 flat. You buying or sell? You buying that stock going into 2024?
What am
Younger
I
guy
for
running 60 for making an Olympic team in the 2024 trials.
2024
Because
trials? Young guy, yeah,
right now, I mean, we don't know if Rupp's going to go all the way to 2024, but let's assume he doesn't. That makes it more fun. There's 3 spots, and they're all kind of just like anybody's spots, right? Except Abdi
yeah,
Hamid is Abdi's probably gonna take one. But
yep. Yeah.
would you believe in a Frank Lara, former Furman athlete? He's run pretty well on the track in the 10K and 5K. Now runs a 61.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Furman, Gordon. I mean, here's the guys who are ahead of him. Here are just some of the names who are ahead of him on the all-time list: Hall, Rupp, Career, Ritz, Jalanga. That's the top 5. I mean, he has his half marathon is as fast as Meb's half marathon PB. Both run 61 flat. Why not? I want to see it in a marathon. I think he should come back and do the Valencia marathon though too. I think he should keep the good thing going here and just come back in December for Valencia. Don't run any of these US marathons where everybody gets bogged down in this 210 to 213 range. Just run with a bunch of dudes who are going to go out in 202 pace and ride the wave. He did a good job. I mean, like it must have been difficult not to get sucked in, and this race just looked like the whole thing was in fast forward. But yeah, if you take out Rupp, you could make a case for anybody. So
Yeah.
of course the 61 is going to look great. I just wonder how many other 61s are we going to have, or sub 61s are we going to have before we get to 2024? What do you think?
I think we're gonna have a lot. I think there will be I think people are just gonna slowly shift into a new gear. I mean, we
Hmm.
could see Houston half pulling in a bunch of faster half marathons. But yeah, if Frank Lara is a 61, you have to assume that there's other athletes out there who can run at his pace because Frank is like a middle of the pack elite distance runner on the US side. So if he's pushing the average, I feel like if anything, he's just lowering the average, right? He's like, hey guys, 61's the new top 8 type
Yeah.
place you need to be. And hopefully other athletes like Connor Mance comes out, runs there. And the
Mhm.
other people who have been in it, like the Jake Rileys and maybe a Ben True comes back, gets into there,
Yeah. Maybe
be
though, but maybe he's unique though. Maybe he has
it's true.
something at this distance that we didn't know. Because you look at the guys in front of him, and yeah, there's some people who didn't have great marathon careers, but as I mentioned at the top, there's still Hall, Rupp, Career who ran a good marathon, right? He ran 2:07, and then you have Ritz there as well too. It's funny though, you look at the dates of a lot of these halves, and to your point, it's all tune-up stuff for the most part, not all of it,
Yeah.
which makes sense because it was when these races were being held. But Hall's wasn't, right? Hall's was that record attempt in Houston. Yeah, he was going to run a marathon, um, compete that spring, but it was early enough to where it wasn't just a tune-up, and you wonder how many of these guys would have run faster if it was just flat out from the gun. Your whole training cycle is about a half marathon. And that's it.
Anyway,
We won't know.
next
We won't
topic.
know. Next
Next topic.
topic, Gordon.
Let's go. Do.
Bashir Abdi. Let's stick on the roads. Bashir Abdi of the Netherlands broke the European men's marathon record in Rotterdam, 2:03:36. That's the second fastest time in the world this year. We were wondering, hey, we're going to see some sub 2:04s. Well, the fast times are coming. And credit to Abdi, Gordon. He's one of the few who was able to figure out how to run well at the Olympics and run well this fall with the bronze and now the European record. Pretty ideal last couple months for Abdi of, did I say the Netherlands? I meant Belgium. My apologies.
Netherlands, Belgium, potato, potato. Everyone gets those mixed up. I'm just kidding.
No,
People
they
don't get
don't.
those
No,
mixed
no,
up, but
no. Belgium. Bashir Abdi, let me start that again. Bashir Abdi of Belgium breaks the European marathon record, does it clocking a sub 2:04, 2:03:36 in Rotterdam to back up his bronze medal in the Tokyo Olympics. He's got to watch. He's got to watch for sure because you got the fast time now combined with the great tactical race in Tokyo.
yeah, yeah. Once you have both, you have the medal and the time, then you become like a true dual. That's something to say a dual threat runner.
Mm-hmm.
You can handle the
I,
fast pace, but you also can handle the tactical race.
mm-hmm. Trained with Mo Farah, so he was in that hour record race. You talked about hour records before. You know, he was he's there's a great hour record alum list now brewing. That's the proving ground
Yeah,
for elite athletes now. But yeah, the replay of the race, if you're in US, Canada, UK, Australia, you can watch it on FloTrack and see that 20 sub 2:04. Another fast time outside of a major too, Gordon. Like the races that
it's
we're talking
happening.
about are Valencia, are Rotterdam, Milan, races like that. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think. What do you think the reason for that trend is? I feel like is it because these non-major marathons are just getting better at enticing fast times that is more valuable to them than an extra $10,000 in appearance fee?
Yeah, I think it's similar to Diamond League versus Continental Tour. Yeah, you're still on average going to get the best overall fields at Diamond League versus Continental Tour, but that doesn't mean that Warholm's not going to show up perhaps to a Continental Tour, or you might get an amazing 100 with Shelly Ann and Elaine Thompson Hurrah in 100. And I think that's what's going on here too. You can still pull an athlete or two, and just because the majors have bigger budgets doesn't mean some of these other marathons don't have big budgets themselves. And with something like Valencia, where they're being financed by a super rich guy who just like spends a gajillion dollars on road racing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you want to be the world marathon major champion, but for enough money and enough prize structure or prize incentives, you'll run wherever. And there's enough good people to spread it out to where New York can get their 5 to 6 big names per gender, London, Boston, Chicago, Berlin, and then there's still 10 or 11 other people that are big names or emerging names, and then you put them on a fast course and run a fast time. I think that's just the reality of it. I think too, a lot of people want to be guaranteed a fast time, so you're not going to run the U.S. based. Well, you'd run Chicago perhaps, although that wasn't that fast this year. But it's just for them, New York and Boston are not going to be in the equation unless you're going to get a good paycheck. So then that
Yeah.
cuts it down. And if you want to be guaranteed a fast time, like right now, where I would go to Valencia if I had to choose anywhere, I would go to Valencia if I was guaranteed a fast time. I'd go to BU for an indoor track, and I go to Valencia for a road race. Two places I go. Outdoor track, if I want to drop that 100 PB, I go to Claremont. I pick up that plus
Imagine
2.0.
Imagine if they put a BU track, they ship that, they tear it
Oh,
down and rebuild it on Valencia property land.
oh, interesting,
Are
interesting.
we seeing like 340 miles all of a sudden? Is that what we're going to start
Yeah.
seeing?
Well, Gidey's chart is going to come to fruition. It's just going to be her pace charts, her point tables are going to come to real life. I thought you could say, you take the Claremont actual surface and you lay that down on the roads of Valencia. I guess you could do that with the BU trampoline as well too.
We
Give you the
put the
wind of
Claremont
Claremont.
surface
Give you
with
the wind
wind
of
on the
Claremont.
BU track in the land of Valencia, and then you're just running world records every day.
Exactly, exactly. I think, yeah, I just think marathon running, like track and field, has always been democratized for the most part. Is law as much as they try to have a simple structure and a routine for the meets, and all the big names are going here. There's just enough chaos to where people break it. And in a year like this year, where you had the all the majors in the fall, it just caused a little bit more havoc than normal, and budgets were probably different for different people. You're also seeing the different strategies. In some races put a lot of money into appearance fees and time bonuses, and other races put a lot of money into places. And depending on where you're at as an athlete, one maybe appeals more to the other. I do know that majors lock up athletes for multi-year contracts too. So a lot of your money is probably tied up in a Kipchoge or in a Kazgai. And then this new marathon comes to town and says, hey, well, London's not going to be able to pay you this much, or Berlin or Boston or not going to be able to pay you this much. I can pay you this much. Why don't you come here? I feel like there's less talk to about the World Marathon majors in terms of like the prize structure, right? Do you remember in the beginning, it was who's got the most points over the 2 year cycle, the $500,000 that got a lot of talk. Now I feel like we mostly just talk about them as singular races as opposed to
Yeah,
the circuit. And maybe that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
because Kipchoge he's like he won and he won
yeah,
again and he kept winning.
yeah. Probably
Anyway, um, all right, let's talk about
Italy.
Marcel Jacobs. Yeah, Italy in particular. Italy is mad. Italy is mad because World Athletics announced the 10 men for the Athlete of the Year finalists, and they are Joshua Cheptegei, Ryan Krauser, Mondo Duplantis, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, Eliud Kipchoge, Pedro Pichardo, Danny Stahl, uh, Mintiladis Tentaglu in the long jump, Damian Warner, and then Carson Warholm. So Marcel Jacobs is not on that list despite winning the 100-meter gold medal. Now, here are the quotes, Gordon, from the Italian Olympic Committee president Giovanni Malago. He said, it's profoundly wrong. It's profoundly wrong. Um, and he said it was a lack of respect as well, too. Now, let's just dig into the numbers a little bit here. Think, man, they left out the 100-meter Olympic champion, but also not on that list. The 200-meter Olympic champion, the 400-meter Olympic champion, the 800-meter Olympic champion, the 10,000-meter Olympic champion, the steeplechase Olympic champion, the high hurdle Olympic champion. I could go on and on. A lot of Olympic champions were not on there because they're only picking 10 athletes here. Now, what case does Jacobs have? Let's just look at his outdoor performances. Pre Olympics, and he ran 5 100-meter meets. He lost 2 of them. So he went 3-2, you could say. Then he wins the Olympics. Post Olympics, he didn't run. Not one race. Didn't race at all. So listen, Italy, you won the 4x1. You got that high jump gold. Very memorable. You got Jacobs. You won the Euro Cup in soccer this year. You had a lot of things go right for you. He is not in the top 10. There is no argument for him to be in the top 10. It is not profoundly wrong. It is not a lack of respect. It is merely an awareness of the whole season of track and field. And Jacobs is not in the top 10. In fact, I'll go further. A lot of those athletes I mentioned and those event winners who won gold in Tokyo would have been included before him. If they included 15 people, he probably would not have been on that list, and he should not have been on that list. And if he wanted to have be on that list, he should have run more. It's pretty simple.
Well said. Add a little of this. I wasn't even surprised that Marcel Jacobs wasn't in the top 10. I was surprised that Andre DeGrasse wasn't in the top 10 because I think Andre DeGrasse has a reason to say I'm a top 10 athlete. He was 3rd in the world rankings. And while he has an Olympic win as well in the 200, I would take an Andre DeGrasse over a Jakob Ingebrigtsen, over a Tentacalou, over a Kipchoge. I would take DeGrasse over a Kipchoge. So if I'm willing to fight for the sprint fans out there that there should have been an Andre DeGrasse in the top 10. But I'm not there to fight for the Italian sprint fans because if we're going to let Jacobs in, we need to let DeGrasse in, we need to let Kenny Bednarik in, and we need to let Fred Curley in. Because
and Stephen Gardner.
And Stephen Gardner, because I'm sticking short sprints for now. While you did beat Fred Curley in the 100 and DeGrasse in the 100 in the Olympics, you chose to stay home, to not run after the Olympics. You also chose to not dominate in your event the way Curley and DeGrasse dominated back and forth in their events. And Kenny B has run sub 20 he's still doing it. He's like on number 50 of sub 20s, right? He's running sub 20 every time he gets on the track. So I would put Curley, Bednarik, and DeGrasse in before I even put Jacobs in. Now, here's the thing. When they do this, they kind of treat it like the Senate, where they're not going to just put a person, like 9 people from LA, and they're all in, and then 1 person from Wyoming, right? They're going to want to have a person from PA, a person from Texas. Like they're going to want to have a person from every state, aka every event. So they don't want to really put more than 1 from the same event. So that's why it's Warholm.
They didn't put any sprinters in.
And so they didn't put any sprinters in.
Yeah.
I guess Warholm technically is the sprinter, But
I agree. That's what they did. I wouldn't. Jakob should be in there because I think Jakob's a top 6 guy if I scored this out. But you're right about Kipchoge. But they want to put Kipchoge there because, yes, the Olympic performance was dominant. But his other race this year, he ran at the airport in the Netherlands. He beat everybody, but was that a real race? And then are you going to put somebody in who only runs once? Listen, I mean, he's won it twice and he deserved it both times. He might even deserve it again. This just wasn't the year for him. People like Tentacalou and Stahl, they have these under the radar seasons because they're in field events, but you go back and you look and you're, oh wow, they only lost once or twice, or they had all the top marks. I still stick with Krauser 1, Warholm 2. I go Warner is my 3rd spot, and then I think you could have I think you'd have Mondo. I'd have Mondo 4, and then I think I'd have like Ingebrigtsen and Stahl there. in some order 5 and 6. But to your point, yes, DeGrasse, I think, should have been on here. I would have moved probably Kipchoge off of it, which is a weird thing to say. But your point stands. They could have invited 3 just sprinter of the years, men's sprinter of the year nominees to Monaco, and Jacobs wouldn't have been on the list, and he shouldn't have been on the list. Here, I don't mean to pile on here, but this is just so obvious, right? That it's not who won the Olympics this year. It is athlete of the entire year. If you're putting him on, he Hansel Parchment, you should put Hansel Parchment in there too.
Yeah.
Big upset at the Olympics. Knocked off the big dog when the time came, ran the great race. You put Hansel Parchment in there, probably ahead of him as well too, right?
Actually, Parchment would be in before Jacobs in my mind because one, Parchment beat a more dominant figure in Grant Holloway, and Parchment went on and continued running and like had
Yep,
other performances throughout the season and pre and
yep.
after. I think a win over Grant Holloway in the Olympic final is 10 times more impressive than a win over Fred Curley in the Olympic final. No offense to Fred Curley. I think Curley probably maybe even agree with that. He's like, yeah, Grant Holloway is pretty damn good. He's 1/100th away from breaking the freaking world record, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Yeah.
Parchment's Olympic performance is more impressive than Jacobs, and Parchment's on. And I don't think Jamaica's out there screaming, "We want Hansel," right? I don't think that's happening because I think they
Is it
recognize.
is Kenya clamoring for the Emmanuel career candidacy, or is that just you?
No, dude, I used to be so hard on the Emmanuel career train, and I jumped off it right before it mattered, and I could have won money anyway. Uh, but yeah, Jacobs. They just well, who said this? An Italian random
It
guy in
was
a
the
restaurant? Who was the
No, it
person who
was
was
the
saying that?
Italian Olympic Committee president, the president of the entire Olympic Committee. Lack
Okay,
of respect.
well, we got to remind the Olympic community like track and field is not one event, and
Yeah,
not everyone that won, like you said, not everyone that won a title was in the top 10. So, I mean, it's going
he
to
said,
get crazier. I mean, the top 10 is basically a way for us to be like, hey, it's really competitive. You're not going to be in the
yeah,
top three, but we're going to give you the little top 10 moniker, right?
yeah.
Like it's going to be a way for like on the women's side for us to recognize a Thing Mo and Sydney McLaughlin without having to give them a top three spot because we have to recognize what they both did is incredible, but they just happen to be doing it in a less, they have
There's
less.
better people.
There's just better people in that season
Yeah,
with Hassan, Hurrah, and Rojas. But yeah, Jacobs is not a Cindy McLaughlin. Is not in the Thing Mo. Like
yeah,
I
yeah. There's,
so
it's not close. It's not close. It's not even debatable. It's silly. And he says the president said a lack of respect toward our 2 athletes. So they're talking about Tambiri as well there too. I guess if World Athletics invited Barshim and not Tambiri, that would have been an
then
interesting way to confuse. But he didn't get invited either. So I don't know. He just thinks that the 100 is the only event that that matters. And you like put his season against Warholm or Krauser's season. It's just hilarious. It's no contest. It's People don't understand what they're going against. And that's why when people get mad, why was this person not nominated? Why is that person? You have to ask, okay, who are you taking off? So, because invariably on the women's side, as you mentioned, Sydney might get left off or Sifan Hassan might get left off of that final 3. And they don't realize how people don't realize how good Rojas's season was. Or on the men's side, they don't
yeah.
realize how good Krauser's season was, or what Warholm people realize what Warholm's done because it was such a high profile moment at the Olympics. But there's only 3 spots. So tell me who you're taking off there and what more that person could have done. Because if you have an Olympic gold and then a couple losses and you only ran a handful of times, I'm sorry, that's just not going to get it done. Like the bar is so high to win this thing and to be even nominated.
One thing I did like though about this list is we kind of have been debating for the past few months who is actually the best men's sprinter, right? There was a moment where we're like, it's DeGrasse. And then we're like, Then Jacobs comes in and kind of flips it upside down. Then it's like, oh, it's the fastest guy. It's Rommel. Oh, now it's Curly because Curly's running out of his mind.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe Benerick. Oh, Lyles though came out and ran a fast 19.5. We constantly had a pro and con for like 5 different people when it comes to men's short sprints, 100 and 200. And we both kind of agreed there kind of isn't a true number one, right? Especially after the Diamond League finals, where not one person didn't win both, right? There was two
Yeah.
different winners, so kind of it's even harder. And I think World Athletics recognized that there wasn't really one true standout sprinter, and I feel like they didn't want to elect who that person was. So they're like, all right, we're just not going to pick any of them. We're going to leave all 5 of the top sprinters off the list because we can't decisively say DeGrasse is the guy, or decisively say Curly's the guy, or Jacobs is the guy, or Ben Eric's the guy, right? They kind of want to be like,
Hmm.
you guys all are eliminated. That's what I feel like they did.
Yeah, and if your event has a lot of parity, that means you're not going to get nominated. Probably you're not going to have someone representing your event because they're not going to send 3 different people from the same event. The exception would be is if you have just 2 complete all timers and you are splitting wins back and forth. But if you have the situation like you did in the men's 100 this year or in the men's 800 to a certain extent, they're just not going to send anybody because how do you pick? And there's so many other people who go through the season and have no losses or 1 or 2 losses. You're going to pick them because if you're not the best in your event, you can't be the best athlete of the year by its very definition.
Yeah.
You cannot be the best athlete of the year. So you got to pass that first hurdle. But the trick is your competition has to be good enough to where your wins really meant something to separate yourself from the competition. That's the fine line there you got to draw.
But yeah, overall, I'm happy with the list. It is weird having the 3 sprinters off, but whatever. And then on the women's side, Shelly and Fraser Price didn't make it, but I think that's just like, hey, they kind of want to just we know Elaine Thompson is in over Shelly Ann, so we're just gonna have to Elaine gets the slot of female sprinter, right? Same thing with Christine and Boma. She got left off because she was always, finishing second in her events. I was
Mhm.
surprised Shawnee Miller Weibo made it, but that because
Read the
while she
10. Can you
did
read the 10?
the 10 are Elaine Thompson Hurrah, Safana San, Yulmar Rojas, Faith Kipiegan, Maria Lastisenki, Valerie Allman, Camacho Quinn, Miller Weibo, McLaughlin, and Mo. I think
Mm.
I get why Miller Weibo, but like what Miller Weibo, the visual of seeing like Miller Weibo like get dead last in a 200, it's just like kind of weird, right? She clearly is a 2-4 person, but like had kind of had like a fake 200 kind of season. So I would have preferred someone else take that spot, but overall, I'm not gonna
I would have put
care about
Shelly Ann
my
over a
8 or
couple.
9 or 10 person. I would have
Yeah,
put
I think
Shelly Ann over Shawnee Miller or Weibo. That's what I would have done.
I would have put Shelly Ann in that group over a couple people. I would have recognized the fact that hey, this is the top 10. I'm not saying this is going to be the final 3, but you got to recognize that season for what it was, which was a historic season, even though it was the second best season in that event. It was still it was still a top 10 this season.
Yeah.
Her being second best in the 100 was better than the first best, or, the best performance in other events from people. That's just the reality of it when you look at how good she ran, even in defeat and sometimes in victory. Because every win over Elaine Thompson Hurrah is an incredible feat because of how good Elaine Thompson Hurrah is. So that's one where I think they oversimplified it a bit and um, didn't put thought into how important and how good second best was this year in the women's 100. But ultimately, only 3 people make the trip if they're actually doing a trip. So what really matters is the 3. She wasn't going to make the 3. She didn't have a case for the 3. Does she have a case for 4 through 10? Yes, I would put her in the 4 through 10 range.
Yeah. And Marcel
Jamaica's got a
Jacobs,
lot to
he's
be
got a
mad about.
case. He's got a case for what, 16 to 24.
Yeah, Jamaica's got a lot to be mad about. Handsome Parchment and Shelly Ann not being on there. Yeah. Jacobs 16 to 24. I don't know, where is he at on the when you do the actual rankings, where are they at, the world rankings?
Oh, I
Is he
don't know.
close? I wonder where he let me look at this. Men's to see this is where we need Travis here. He is Jacobs 25th. So
There you go.
you said 16 to 24?
It's
Yeah.
just right out, right outside.
Yeah. That's probably accurate. I'd put Rye Benjamin ahead of him. I'm just looking at other people on the list. There's a lot of people who didn't win gold who I would put ahead of him as well too, who ran more frequently. Okay. Um FloTrack at gmail.com is the email address. Oh, I wanted to mention too, you're not the only one with a YouTube show, Gordon. I mean, we both have a YouTube show because it's on YouTube, but I'm a separate YouTube show is what I meant.
Okay.
Um, you have the NCAA XC show, which comes out every Tuesday. I'm excited for this week's edition. You get a lot of feedback, you told me, from coaches sometimes too, and in the comments, which is
Yeah.
exciting. You should do a segment where you read anonymous text that you get from coaches. Actually, you say it, but then you bleep it just because bleeping is fun. Like, and beep from beep sent me this, but none of the information is actually
But
specific,
I
so we wouldn't know. But it's just
yeah,
like you're an idiot. That's just all it is.
or I keep like the word state. So like "Burp from burp state," and okay, so we know it's something state. Okay, so it's either
Yeah,
Utah
yeah, yeah.
State, Oklahoma State, Colorado State. Which one is it?
And they just say, and you just show what it is that they said completely out of context too. Like nice rankings, moron, something like that. It'd be good. But anyway, I did a race breakdown. I'm gonna do one of these per week through the end of 2021,
One.
hopefully. Hopefully. First one was on Jakob Ingebrigtsen's indoor European 1500-meter record. So check it out. It's like 6 minutes long. It's on the main FloTrack podcast YouTube channel. Dove into some stats. I made a table, Gordon, there looking at how the 1500 at the championships has gotten faster over these past couple of years because of the likes of Cherry and Ingebrigtsen pushing the pace. But the regular season has basically stayed the same. So what we have here is the championships more closely mirroring the regular season in a way that we haven't seen before. So you check it out. It's a quick view. It's on the FloTrack YouTube channel. Also, some sad news before we go. We got word last week. It's just been a horribly tragic set of days here in the track and field worlds. Alex Quiñónez, the sprinter from Ecuador, died. Was shot in Ecuador, um, reportedly killed outside of a shopping center, according to reports. Quiñónez was third at the Doha World Championships in 2019. Um, he had a 200-meter PB of 19.87. The big name in Ecuadorian sprinting, and had been sort of mainstay on the Diamond League circuit. So incredibly sad, especially coming on the heels of the news about Agnes Tirop as well.
Yeah, it's like when I saw that news, I was like, "Oh my god, again!" Like these things are supposed to be rare, not often within like a few days of each other. But yeah, thoughts and prayers to the Ecuadorian track and field community. Hey, he was one of those like surprise runners, right? It was like,
Mhm.
what? This guy's getting third in Doha, um, and it's kind of hard to like sprinting. Men's sprinting in the world is like one of the hardest events to like to excel in, right? We see how great
Mhm.
U.S. sprinting is, and obviously, Jamaican sprinters and all, just in general, like if you want to be the top in the top three in the world in a 200, you got to be one of an all-time greats, in my opinion. And so for him to come out of Ecuador and pull off a bronze medal is extremely impressive. And I'm sure the Ecuadorian community is going to always remember that third place finish. And it's a bummer,
Mhm.
man. These things aren't supposed to happen, but they happen.
Yeah, it was the first athlete from Ecuador to win a global medal in any track event. That was it. And in the U.S. and in these larger countries, you're used to having representation in a bunch of different events, and sometimes you forget that some countries just have the one athlete or the two athletes, and for them, bronze is just this huge accomplishment. and if they get out of a world championships or an Olympics with a medal or two, it's cause for celebration. And he was obviously one of those athletes that represented a country like that. So yeah, thinking of the Ecuadorian track and field community and everybody in the track and field community who knew Alex, incredibly sad story. As I mentioned, the email address, FloTrack podcast at gmail.com. Gordon, what do we have coming up the rest of the week?
So, cross country show tomorrow. Gonna break down who is on the bubble with making the meet. The top 31 teams pulled out the Colas calculator. Wednesday gonna be a freaky show. Don't know. I mean, maybe we'll save the freaky show for Friday for Halloween. But when do we do our
Mm,
freaky show? We doing Wednesday or we doing it Friday? Because
let's do
Friday,
Friday.
yeah, Friday's conference championships. So we might do
Hmm.
a live pod right after the morning sessions, so we can kind of react to the results in real time. But we'll figure it out.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Glad you
Yeah.
ran that one by me before you told everybody. That's good. Okay. Well, we'll figure that one out. How about this? How about this episode title? How the Pensapet Gidey could upend the NCAA cross country championships? Three question marks. You like it? No? No? Okay.
I
All right.
don't. Yeah, maybe we'll do more Ben Simmons talk. Right? There'll probably
You
be
don't
more
have
story
to get
there,
it. You don't have to get it. You just put it as the title, and then you talk about anything else. I
or
don't
just
know.
how about was
Just
it
throwing
the
it out.
shoes? That's what we're doing. Everyone loves shoe content, right?
Well, for Lincoln, it was the lights. Remember, Lincoln got into
Or the
hot
lights?
water
Yeah.
when she broke the world record in the 5K because he got mad about the lights. And then he said you could probably go back and dig out some Lincoln quotes there of him basically saying she wasn't a world record holder and this is not going to look very good in a couple of years when she isn't the world record holder anymore. And then she goes and runs 62:52. It's like, no, Gidey is actually really good.
Do
Gidey
you
is that
think?
good.
Do you think Lincoln? That definitely is gonna go down as a freezing cold take by Lincoln. Do you think when he was watching this, he was like, "Are those street lights helping her out?" Like, I feel
Yeah.
like every street light is turning on and then off to like keep her on pace. I think this doesn't count because those street lights look like they're flickering.
There was a dude riding a bike with an Ethiopian flag the entire way on the sidewalk, which maybe had the same effect as the lights. It might have been the phalanx of pacers that were around her at all times that had more of an impact. But it turns out, yeah, the lights probably helped a little bit. Shoes helped a little bit, but Gidey is good because she still beat a woman who had run 64 by about a minute. So that's good. That's good no matter how you slice it. So
That's great.
yeah,
That is. Yeah.
sorry, bad take for Lincoln, but that's all good.
Hey, we all have them. I have a lot of them too.
Yeah, but you're still on this show, so I don't bring them
For
up as
now.
much. And also, you do them in such quick succession, and then you just like move on to the next one and the next one, and every one bad take has three folded into it. Lincoln will really focus and he'll do like 5 to 10 minutes on something. And I remember I don't know if it was emails or comments or something afterwards from people telling us, whereas yours, I think either people are used to them or again, they're just caught off guard by them. They don't respond as forcefully anymore.
Yeah. Well, most of my takes aren't prepared. Like I don't. They come in the middle of
You don't
conversation.
say.
Like we're on the topic and we're talking about for 7 minutes. It's not till like the 7 minute mark where I'm like, ooh, this is my take now. And then I just say
Yeah.
it. And you're like, okay, what
The
didn't see
vibe I
that
got
coming,
with
but you know.
Lincoln, yeah, the vibe I got with Lincoln is he had been mad about lights for about 12 hours before we went on the show and had time to really plan it out and really flesh out the argument. And then people responded in kind. It was
He
not
probably
spur of the moment.
he probably was just projecting his anger towards you because he probably just got back from Home Depot and realized it's gonna cost like $1,000 to redo the lighting fixtures in his house. And he's like just taking it all out on lights, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
anything
His
that
sh
LEDs are all just dead to me.
his
Probably what it
shed,
was.
his awesome
His
shed.
shed lights.
Well, I think he thought, "Hey, this woman's 21 years old, and she's this much better than everybody else." Clearly, it's because of the lights and he was more into the lights than the shoes. Shoes, he was downplaying, which The problem is people get stuck in these binary things, and it could have been both, which I don't know if I said this at the time, but I'll say it now, where it's like, yeah, that helped, but also, and now we have the benefit of 2 years of her running to see she's really good. Remember when Chalimo was on during her world record, uh, during the world record attempt, and he was going on about how just didn't he call it at 2K or something that she was going to break it?
Yeah,
Am I
very
remember? I
early.
remember this correctly. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and he basically said if she's on early, she doesn't move off of the pace. Like, this is what she does. She's able just to lock in and grind it out. She doesn't have the finishing kick of Safan Hassan, but she can grind out these laps. I remember Chalimo saying that. So it it, it kind of makes perfect sense. Put her on the roads, put her behind some pacers. She'll run forever. She'll just click off 3 minutes a K
There we go. Like and
or sub 3 minutes.
subscribe to our podcast
There
channel,
you go.
or yeah, subscribe to our audio feed. But if you're listening on the audio feed, you're probably already subscribed. But if not,
Yeah,
hit it.
yeah. I think I'll do Gidey. We have that Gidey world record. So maybe I'll do that one for this week's race breakdown. That'll be on Friday. Gordon's NCAA cross country show comes out tomorrow, and we'll be back on Wednesday with another edition of the FloTrack podcast. Thanks to Travis. Thanks to Colt, the world's #1 Minnesota Timberwolves fan. We'll talk to you guys next time.